The first time I saw him, he didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just looked at me with eyes so tired, so old, they didn't seem to belong to a dog at all. His fur was matted with dirt, his ribs stuck out like jagged branches, and a thick rusted chain was wrapped tight around his neck, its weight dragging along the ground like a burden he'd carried forever. He had been chained for nearly 7 years. 7 long years in a backyard no one ever visited. Through the freezing cold winters and the scorching summer heat, through storms and quiet nights when no one came. No toys. No walks. No affection. Just the hard ground and that heavy chain. He didn't even have a name. The neighbors had called animal control so many times. Reports were filed. Complaints made. But each time, the case was closed. The dog has food and water, they said. It's legal. And so he remained, invisible to the world, chained and forgotten. Until that day I walked by. I wasn't supposed to be there. My GPS had rerouted me through that street. And when I passed the old fence, something, a feeling I can't describe, made me stop. I heard the faint rattle of the chain before I saw him. He didn't move when I approached. Just looked up slowly. His eyes didn't beg. They didn't plead. They had given up. "Hey, buddy," I whispered, kneeling down. "What happened to you?" A low, almost inaudible whine left his throat. He tried to stand, but his legs trembled and buckled. My chest tightened. This wasn't just neglect, it was abandonment wrapped in cruelty. I called animal rescue immediately. I didn't care if it was legal. I didn't care if they told me to mind my business. That dog was suffering, and no law should protect suffering. It took hours for them to come. I sat with him the entire time, feeding him what little food I had in my car, some granola, a bit of jerky. He ate gently, carefully, like he hadn't used his jaw in a while. When the rescue van finally arrived, he tried to move again. This time, he stood barely. And then something happened that broke me. He wagged his tail. Just once. Weak. Slow. But it was a wag. Even after everything, even after years of being chained to misery, there was still some part of him, some small, fragile hope, that wanted to believe in kindness. The rescuers were careful with him, using bolt cutters to finally free him from the rusted chain. He didn't resist. He didn't bark. He just leaned into my hand as I stroked behind his ear. The vet said he was 10 years old but looked 15. Malnourished, dehydrated, anemic. His muscles were atrophied, his teeth worn, but miraculously, his heart was strong. They asked me if I wanted to name him. I said, Hope, because that's what he had left. At the shelter, Hope was quiet. He didn't play with the other dogs. He flinched at loud noises. But he always looked at me with those same deep eyes, watching, learning, waiting. One morning, I brought him a soft blue blanket. When I laid it down, he didn't move for a moment. Then slowly, he walked over and curled up on it. That night, for the first time, he fell asleep without shaking. Day by day, he changed. He started eating more. He stopped flinching. He began to wag his tail, not just once, but often. He would nuzzle my hand, rest his head on my knee, and follow me around like I was the only thing he trusted in the world. And maybe I was. I took him home 3 weeks later. The shelter said he wasn't adoptable. Too old, too broken. But I saw something different. I saw a soul that hadn't given up. A heart that still wanted to love. He was scared of stairs at first. Scared of the sound of the washing machine. Scared of doors. But he wasn't scared of me. One night, as I sat reading on the couch, Hope came up and did something he'd never done before. He climbed up next to me, placed his head on my chest, and sighed. That sound, it wasn't a whine. It wasn't a cry. It was peace. The kind of peace that only comes when a soul finally rests. I didn't know then how long he had. The vet warned me he might not have more than a year. But I made him a promise. However long he had left, they would be the best days of his life. And just when I thought I had seen the full extent of Hope's story, something unexpected happened. The next morning, I found a letter taped to my door. The handwriting was shaky. The return address? The same house where Hope had once been chained. It simply read, "Please come speak with me." I think I made a terrible mistake. I stood on my porch, letter in hand, heart pounding. What could they possibly say after all this time? I had to find out. The old house looked just like I remembered. Weathered siding, overgrown weeds, and that chain still lying in the dirt like a ghost of the past. I had promised myself I'd never return here, but the letter in my hand felt too heavy to ignore. I knocked on the screen door. A few moments later, it creaked open. An elderly man stood before me. His hands trembled as he pushed open the screen. His eyes, sunken red-rimmed, weren't what I expected. There was no anger, no coldness. Only something that looked like shame. "You came," he said softly. "I read your letter," I replied, unsure of what else to say. He motioned for me to follow him to the porch. We sat in silence for a moment, the creak of the old wood beneath us louder than our breaths. Hope sat beside me, close, his eyes scanning the man with a mix of fear and familiarity. "That's him?" the man asked, voice cracking. "That's Hope," I said. He nodded. "I called him Dog. Never gave him a name." I stayed quiet. "I wasn't always like this," he began. "Years ago, my wife got sick. Cancer. Took everything. Her strength. My savings. My will. After she passed, I just stopped feeling. I didn't care about anything. Not the yard. Not the house. Not even that dog." Hope whined quietly, his body low to the ground. The man rubbed his eyes. "He was a gift from her, you know. Said he'd keep me company. But after she died, I couldn't look at him. Every time I saw him, I saw her. And instead of loving him, I chained him up. Out of sight. Out of mind." I felt my chest tighten. Rage flickered inside me, but something else crept in, grief. "Not mine. His. I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said, voice shaking. "But I wanted to see him one last time. Just to know if he made it." I looked down at Hope. He was watching the man, tail still. No wag this time. Just quiet observation. "He survived," I said. "But just barely." He nodded again, tears rolling down his cheeks. "I don't expect him to forgive me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I was broken. Still am." Hope stepped forward. It wasn't fast. It wasn't eager. But slowly, cautiously, he moved closer to the old man. Then, he did something that stopped my breath. He rested his head on the man's knee. The old man sobbed, his hands hovering in the air as if afraid to touch him. Then, gently, he placed one trembling hand on Hope's head. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. "But thank you." We stayed for a while longer. He told me more about his wife, the life they had before the illness. It wasn't a story of evil. It was a story of collapse, of loneliness, of a man who lost everything and let his grief rot into cruelty. When we left, he didn't ask for anything. No photos. No visits. Just a quiet goodbye and a whispered, "Take good care of him." Back home, Hope seemed lighter. Like a burden he never knew he carried had been lifted. He slept deeply that night, curled in his blanket like a pup who never knew chains. The following weeks brought joy I couldn't have imagined. Hope began playing. Actually playing. He'd run through the garden like he owned it, chase butterflies, bark at squirrels, and then roll on the grass, belly up, waiting for me to rub his stomach. He had a favorite toy, a squeaky blue bear. He would carry it around like it was treasure, sometimes even bringing it to bed. One morning, I opened the back door and he bolted outside like a rocket. Seconds later, I heard him barking, not fearfully but excitedly. I rushed out, expecting trouble. Instead, I saw him wagging his tail furiously at a little girl standing on the sidewalk. She looked no older than 6, clutching a pink balloon. Her eyes lit up as Hope approached, gently nudging her hand with his nose. "Can I pet him?" she asked shyly. "Only if he lets you," I replied. Hope wagged his tail again and sat down right in front of her, like he'd been waiting for this moment all his life. The girl giggled and gently patted his head. "He's so soft," she said. Her mother smiled from a few steps away. "We just moved in. I think you have a fan now." I laughed. He could use one. From then on, Hope had a new friend. Every afternoon, she'd come by with her mother, and Hope would wait by the door, tail swaying in anticipation. The sight of them playing together became a kind of magic in the neighborhood, a symbol of healing, of second chances. One afternoon, I received a call from the shelter. "We heard about Hope's story," the woman said, "and there's a local school that wants to feature him in a project about resilience. Would you be willing to bring him in?" I looked over at him, sprawled on his back with the blue bear wedged between his paws. "He'd love that," I said. Hope became more than just a dog. He became a teacher, a symbol, proof that even the most broken souls can mend with love. But one night, just before dawn, I heard a soft whimper. When I got to him, he was awake, eyes open, staring into mine. And in that moment, I knew. The time I'd been dreading was drawing near. The vet confirmed what my heart already knew. Hope's body was tired. His heart, though strong for so long, was now struggling. His legs moved slower. His breaths came shorter. But through it all, he still wagged his tail whenever I entered the room. In the final days, I stayed close. I canceled work. Turned off my phone. The world could wait. Hope couldn't. I made his favorite meals, soft chicken, a little cheese, warm broth. He'd rest his head on my lap after eating, eyes half closed, his tail tapping gently against the floor. One evening, just before sunset, we sat together in the backyard. The sky was painted with golden light, the kind of light that makes everything feel still. Hope rested on his blanket, the blue bear tucked under one paw. Birds chirped in the trees. The wind moved slowly through the grass. It felt like time itself had paused for him. I leaned down and whispered, "You were never just a dog. You were a lesson. You were a miracle." And as the sun slipped behind the trees, Hope took one final breath. It was soft, peaceful, almost like a sigh. He passed away with his head in my hands, surrounded by warmth, by love, by freedom. No chains, no pain, just peace. The following days were quiet. The house felt heavier, lonelier. The blanket stayed folded. The blue bear untouched. The silence, at first, was unbearable. But then, something began to shift. Letters arrived. Messages from strangers. People who had seen Hope's story through the school project, from shelter posts, from word of mouth. A child drew a picture of him and mailed it to me. "Hope the Brave," it said in colorful crayon. One woman wrote, "Your story helped me rescue an old chained dog from my neighbor's yard. He wags his tail now, too." Another shared, "I named my puppy Hope in his memory." Hope had become more than my companion. He had become a movement, a quiet revolution of kindness. And that's when I understood, his life wasn't measured in years. It was measured in change. From a forgotten backyard to a warm home. From a rusted chain to open fields. From silence to laughter. From a number to a name. Hope. The little girl down the street still visits sometimes. She brings her balloon, now tied to the handle of a small wicker basket. Inside, stuffed toys and one blue bear. "I bring him here so he doesn't feel lonely," she told me once, setting the bear beside a small stone I had placed in the garden. It simply reads, "Hope, loved until the end." I plant wildflowers there now. Every spring, they bloom like magic. Bright yellow, soft white, gentle blue. It's the most beautiful place in my yard. And whenever I see those flowers, I remember what Hope taught me. That no soul is too broken. That time cannot erase the power of kindness. That even after years of pain, healing is possible. That love, pure, patient, and true, can unchain even the darkest past. So if you ever pass by a lonely dog behind a fence, stop. Look. Kneel. Speak. You never know. You might find another hope. Or maybe they'll find you.